Hi, I'm Amanda and this is Copper, and today I'm going to tell you guys about my favorite series that were so good that I immediately had to reread them. And I've got my coffee so you can go and grab yours, and let's get into it. So starting out with my ride or die all-time favorites, my sweet baby angels. ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas. These are the books that got me back into reading, and they will forever hold a special place in my heart for that alone and for these stories. They are just so special to me. And when I initially read these, they just changed my world, and so I just immediately reread them, and every reread since has been just as good. I've probably reread these like 5 times at this point. They are just as good. I mean, even better. Every reread you find new things that you've missed, and you just kind of discover more about the story. I love everything about these books, and if you don't love these books, then I don't understand you. These books were there for me through, a not so great time in my life, and they really got me through it. And the characters just are such an inspiration to me. I love all of them. Okay, well, mostly all of them. And I will say right now, I am definitely a Nesta girly, so no Nesta hate will be tolerated on this page at all. My favorite part about these books is the found family in them. It was just such a special thing to read and to kind of realize that those relationships and bonds can be found. Obviously it's a fantasy book, so whatever, but still, it was just so special to me. It healed a little broken piece in me, and I will forever be thankful for that. And I normally do a reread of these every year, usually in January, but as it is now February in 2025, I still have not done my reread. I think I'm gonna hold out until I'm in a book slump and then pull these guys out because I just will always love them. So yeah, these will forever be my favorite books to reread. So keeping up with the SJM theme, another series that I immediately had to reread is Throne of Glass. I absolutely love this series, and there's just so much going on in these books that you just kind of really need to do a reread. At some point you don't have to do it immediately after, unless you're unhinged like I am. But there's just so much going on in these that doing a reread, you just kind of catch all the things that you missed during the first read. And there was a lot that I missed and that I figured out during my second reread. And that's really why I love doing rereads. I mean, I was also the kind of person who does rewatches of my favorite TV shows before I got into reading, and now I do it with reading, just because when I find a book that I really, really love and that really speaks to me, I'm going to reread it because I know I'm not going to be disappointed, and I just love that. But yeah, I loved this story. If you want a series that's going to break you just to put you back together, just to break you again, this is your series. It's gonna do that to you. These books, I mean, they're just so incredible. They will make you cry, they'll make you laugh, they will give you all the feelings. And I will say, I read the Kindle version where all the books are in one Kindle file, so it was kind of really hard for me to differentiate between books. Like when I hear people talking about them today, they'll say, oh, my favorite book is Queen of Shadows, and in my head I'm like, what the heck happened during Queen of Shadows. Like, I can't differentiate in my brain from that huge file what book was what and what happened in what book. So I definitely want to do another reread, and with these actual physical books. I just got these. And then hopefully I'll actually be able to differentiate what happens in what books, because honestly, I have no idea. It's just one big story in my mind, which is great. So I can't wait to do that and then finally be able to tell you guys which one is my favorite book, because I can't even do that right now. And I just love them all so much. So, all right, so next up is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I still am completely obsessed with this book. It was just so different from the books that I had been reading when this book came out that I just fell in love and was obsessed. And so I immediately reread this book, which I will say is a little trick for me to avoid book slumps. Like, if I'm reading a book that's just so incredible that I know I'm not going to be able to forget about, I will just reread it, and that's how I stay out of book slumps. So, hot tip. But I just loved this book. It deserves all the hype that it gets, and when I first read it, it gave me major Divergent vibes, which just kind of brought me back to my childhood when everything was great. But I just really loved that about this book. It was like Divergent with dragons. Like, how could you go wrong? So I was just immediately obsessed, and still am. And while Iron Flame was still really good, but the ending of that book made me literally throw my Kindle across the room and not want to reread it immediately. So, but I did do a reread of it before Onyx Storm came out last month, and it was still really good. And I also loved Onyx Storm. I do think that I should do a reread of Onyx Storm. It's harder now. Like, I used to do a ton of rereads before I got really deep into reading, before I started a book talk, before I started a booktube, because I just wasn't introduced to as many books without all of you guys, and I didn't have, you know, my huge TBR shelf. I didn't have all of these books. So it's definitely harder now, just because there's so many books out there that I want to read, and I feel this like need to read them and to just devour everything that I can possibly. So it's definitely harder to do my rereads, but that's okay. I will always do a reread before like the next book in the series comes out, because I have the worst memory. I forget about what happens in the book immediately after I finish it, which is really bad, but that's just kind of where I'm at. So definitely will always do a reread before a new book in the series comes out. And now we don't even know when the next book is going to come out, which is really depressing, but hopefully someday soon we'll get to be back in this world. But yeah, I think this is my favorite book so far in the series. There's just something so special about it, and I still think it's different from all the books that I've read. It just, I don't know, it has this certain aspect of it that's really magical, and that will just kind of always stick in my brain, and I will always recommend this book to anyone. So yeah, love it. Okay, so the last series that I want to talk about today is From Blood and Ash and the Flesh and Fire series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I absolutely love these books. I completely devoured them. I read them, I think, in 2023 and loved every second of it, honestly. So if you can tell, I'm missing the first book, From Blood and Ash. It is currently on loan to my Sisterhood of the Traveling book club. So we all picked like our favorite book, and now everyone is going to annotate that book and once it gets back to me, I'll be able to read all of everyone's annotations and their thoughts, and I can't wait to get that back. And I also recently recommended From Blood and Ash. I gave it to my work book club. We did like a Secret Santa, so the girl that I gave it to, she loved it. And I just love that I'm getting to introduce people into this world because I love it so much. And honestly, these books do not get the hype that they deserve. Like, I understand why maybe some people don't like it, but when I first read it, I was just there for the vibes and I enjoyed every single second. I devoured these books and I read them, I think, when A Fire in the Flesh came out. So I had just finished reading whatever up to that point, and then A Fire in the Flesh came out, so I was like, might as well just do a reread. And I will say that this reread wasn't as great as the first time. I mean, it's never gonna be as great as that first read, but doing that reread, I do kind of see why some people don't really love the books. But honestly, if you just read for the vibes, they're so great. And I will say the prequel series, so A Flesh in the Fire series, is in my mind the better of the two, will say. I mean, Daddy Nyctos can do no wrong. Yeah, love him. So yeah, I just love both of these stories. I mean, I love Poppy and Sarah. They are just two badass FMCs with, you know, the stabby tendencies, which we love. And I just love their characters so much. And I also love Castile and Kieran and obviously Daddy Nyctos. And there is a book that came out last year. I think it was the next one in From Blood and Ash, I believe, that I haven't read yet. So I still need to get on that. And honestly, I'll probably do a reread before I read that, just because I love them so much. And also because I haven't read these in a while, probably like 2 years by this point. So I definitely need a refresher, but that's going to be a big time investment. And I believe another book is coming out this year, I think in the Flesh and Fire series. So maybe I'll just wait and do a reread closer to when that one's coming out. That sounds like a good plan. But yeah, like I said, these do not get enough hype. They are so good. Honestly, I love this world. Honestly, I am a sucker for a vampire book. So yeah, they had me there. But yeah, I love these books and I would highly, highly, highly recommend them. So if you haven't read them, go read them. And I will say I read these in like publication order, so that's my recommended reading order, and I loved reading it that way, and I'm pretty sure that's what JLA also recommends. So go read these. They're so good. So those are 4/5 of my favorite series that I immediately had to reread because they are just that good. So we had ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and then From Blood and Ash and the Flesh and Fire series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. 5 of my probably all-time favorite series that I will always recommend, and each one of them holds such a special place in my heart. So let me know your favorites in the comments, and yeah, love you guys, bye.